Um, does the Northeast have a special character in terms of folk music that is different from other regions of England?
Well, if you go by what they collected, those old geezers, yes, it does. For instance, the wide intervals in the tunes, you get a lot of octave intervals and so on, or third to the tonic and so on, that kind of thing. You get particular modes, and again, you could argue, well, the old collectors were interested in that, so they specialised in collecting those tunes. But they must have still been there, and they are beautiful. So for me, the modal character of some of the songs as well. And then that huge range of subject matter, you know, everything from lyrical to industrial, and then the emphasis on the language of the region as well, the dialects, the pitmatic for the pit songs. I mean, like, I didn't do this one, but for instance, things like, it's in the evening after dark, when the black-legged miner goes to work with his moleskin pants and dirty shirt, there comes the black-legged miner. You know, a song reflecting the industrial past and its conflicts as well, anti-blackleg song. So the language as well, immensely important.
And people think of the Northeast as almost like a space between Scotland and England. What's your take on that?
I'm an incomer. I've only lived here for 25 years,
yeah.
But my husband was Northumbrian and a Northumbrian piper, and most definitely there is a feeling abroad of Northumberland being Northumberland and not Scotland, and hardly even part of England, really. I think there is most definitely still
in-betweenness.
An in-betweenness and a local identity, a regional identity.
And do the kids have that today as well?
It's very odd that people ask this question, and you can see it reflected in the language. Now, youngsters, for instance, often really take the mickey out of the older members of the community who still, for instance, have that retroflex r, so they would say Northumbria if they used the word Northumbria. Youngsters take the mickey out of that, and yet I've heard loads of young working class people who still use that. Who still have that as part of their dialect and their accent.
Where do people make music today in the Northeast? Where do you hear folk music?
It's curious, there's a folk club scene, of course there is, although in Northumberland itself, as opposed to Newcastle, there are very few folk clubs. I can only think of Ashington Folk Club in Northumberland itself. People tend to make music in pubs at designated kind of sessions, like there'll be instrumental sessions, there'll be specially set aside song sessions. I mean, there's one in Alnwick, for instance, where they get up to 35 singers, and they won't get to sing more than one song a night, but, you know, that's what they want. They want lots of singers there, and so on.
And has that changed in the time you've been living here?
It has changed in the time I've been living here, and since before I came up as well, because in the old days, if you like, music was made in people's homes a lot, around the kitchen. My daughter, who's a fiddler, her early education, she's 40 now, her early education was going to people's homes, like Will Atkinson, like Will Taylor, sitting in the kitchen, drinking tea, having sandwiches and so on, and then playing and talking about music, and getting the opportunity to play with those wonderful old players as well. So I think it has changed. It's more, there are good things about it and bad things about it. They're more organised, the sessions, it seems to me, than they used to be. It used to be much more a case of ring somebody up and say, can we come around for a few tunes or whatever. That seems to have changed.
Where would somebody go if they wanted to start playing Northumbrian music?
Northumbrian music?
Or sorry, singing Northumbrian Northeast songs?
Well, you know, there's still no harm in doing it the old way and finding out who's doing it and going to them. One thing I've always noticed about people up here, and I think it's generally in the folk world anyway, you find this, people are generous with their time and their skills and their knowledge. And if you want to know about it, ask them, they will be delighted.
Who would be good people to look for?
For in the way of singing?
Yeah.
Oh, for goodness, let's see, where would we start? I mean, there's some of the older singers, people like Hannah Hutton are still around. And then there's a younger generation, people like George Unthank. When I say younger, I mean, I think I mean my age. But, you know, kind of not quite decrepit yet, still out there and doing it. And then, of course, there are people of the younger generation, like his daughters, George Unthank's daughters, for instance. But then, you know, you could just get in touch with people who run folk clubs and say to them, I'm interested in learning songs. Who would you recommend? Do you know somebody who's in your region? That kind of thing.
And last question, what would you regard as the authentic, a few songs that you would regard as really Northeast songs?
I think I'd look at those songs like The Bonnie Pit Laddie, which is a 9/8 Northumbrian pipe tune, but that has words, and has been used as a lullaby in the past, and it's just a little paean of praise to the pitman, the miner. And has that lovely modal quality, which I would describe as the Lydian. I know you might not, but I would. It's a good shorthand for me. So that modal quality to it, things like the Blackleg Miner, those kinds of things. And there are other strike songs as well. Of course, one of the great Northeastern writers, Tommy Armstrong, chronicled the industrial history of the pits in this region with the songs and poems that he wrote, you know. So there's all those kinds of things as well. And then there are the beautiful old ballads. There's things like The Outlandish Night, The Outlandish Night, which of course reflects this region because these were the outlands, that borderland between England and Scotland. And there's a ballad about a young woman who's taken away from Northumberland by a Scotsman, but tricks him and gets back safely to Northumberland. There's those kinds of things, classic ballads, but rooted in this region, both in its geography and its history.